Today is April 10th, 2018, and the Board of Commissioners meeting is called to order at 6:03. Will Commissioner Lister please lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance?
My last invocation. Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you'll please join me in the Lord's Prayer, the prayer that Jesus Christ taught his disciples. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges?
Here.
Commissioner Oakley?
Here.
Commissioner Lister?
Here.
Vice Mayor Douther?
Present.
Mayor Black?
Here. Next on the agenda, we have public comment. The floor is now open for public comment. And I'd just like to remind everybody that the time is limited to 3 minutes. You may only speak on items that are not on the agenda. Please speak directly into the microphone, give your full name and your address, and please be courteous and respectful. Thank you.
Steve Kochik, 15301 2nd Street East, Madeira Beach. First, I'd like to thank Terry Lister for the years that he put in service to our city. It was great working with you when we worked together, and I always enjoyed the way that you approached your job. It was always with the intent of making this a better city. I never once felt that there was personal interest that you had. At times, even I think you were torn because you may have felt one way, but that wasn't the best interest of the city. And you're a shining example, believe me. I'd like to congratulate everybody else, the new electees and all. And I think, once again, we come to that time where it's a new board coming up. There's a time to put away all the stuff that went on during the elections and all, and now to see if we can come together with openness. And what I'm looking forward, I'll tell you right now what I'm looking forward from the new board, is I'd like to know what you plan for the city out in the open with the policy so we can support it. Not where things just pop up out of nowhere and it's like, where did that come from? What's your direction? What's your vision for the city? I sat in on one of the visioning sessions that you had, so you were taught how to do it. There seemed to be a expression of cooperation and wanting to work together. So now with the board, you have a board that is comfortable with you. So now I hope that we will see that you'll come out and say, here's where we expect the city to be going. And this is how we are going to do it. Thank you very much. Congratulations again, Terry.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore Drive. Terry, thank you for your service, sir. Really appreciate it. Did a fine job. What I wanted to speak about is that our wonderful governor just signed into law a Beach Privacy Act, basically. And it restricts our tourists from accessing the beach or dry sand, let's put it that way. They can access the wet sand. But all the dry sand is considered their property. And I think that would be a tragedy for Madeira Beach for that to happen. I think the communities up and down the beach, Gulf beaches, ought to get behind each other or a group with Pinellas County and try to put a halt to this, because all it's going to do is hurt the economy and the businesses and the people that use these beaches. And I think it's a travesty for us as Floridians and the people that come down here. I don't know how to go about that, but I'll be glad to help any committee or anything like that, because I think it's that important to leave our beaches open so that public can use them. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment is now closed. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Any comments from commissioner staff?
I had a couple. In the February 27th meeting, page 3. Have they put out a bid for the communicator yet, or how is that going?
I had a conversation with the gentleman that provides that type of publication, and as part of the discussions that we'd like to have the board to discuss a more broad-based marketing and communication strategy. Print media is something that is expensive, but based on the nature of our community, we think that there's some value to it, but we want to make sure that we put out a request for qualifications versus a request for proposals, because you're going to want to select based on who is the best to provide the services that we're looking for. So that is something that is on the manager's desk. We are working through that, but that's something that's going to be incorporated in an overarching marketing and communication strategy.
And then, again, under the art contest, it needs to be put in here that it has, that it's going to be revisited in July or August. And it didn't say that in the little part you put in there.
The one thing I'd like to bring up is, as we're reading through there, I'm noticing that the city clerk is not getting some people's addresses. You know, they're getting your name, but not their addresses. You know, how do we correct that problem? That, you know, they say it loud enough that you get it, I guess, is an issue, so we know who these people are or where they're from. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other comments? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Lister?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Douther?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. All right, and next on the agenda, we have the awarding of a plaque to Commissioner Lister. Mr. City Manager?
Madam Mayor, if I can have Commissioner Lister join me at the podium. Madam Mayor, members of the public, it is with great honor and esteem that I have the opportunity to present Commissioner Terry Lister with this plaque. He has served this city since March 25th, 2008 to April 10th, 2018. And obviously, for those of you that have been in this community, have seen the work that Commissioner Lister has done, but also governing during one of the worst economies that this country has faced since the Depression takes a special individual, and it definitely is selfless public service. I can tell you that the elected officials in most communities, especially this, do not do it for the money. They do it for the commitment to their peers. They do it for their commitment to their community and to make Madeira Beach an exceptional community to live, work, and play. And I think if you look at the public policy decisions over Commissioner Lister's career, the proof is in the pudding. So it is with great honor that I have the opportunity to read this plaque and then present him with the highest honor that a resident, visitor, or business owner can receive, and that is the key to the city. Presented to Terry Lister, Commissioner, District 1, March 25th, 2008 to April 10th, 2018. On behalf of the City of Madeira Beach and its citizens, we thank you for your dedicated service in making this community a better community. This appreciation plaque is presented by the Board of Commissioners this 10th day of April 2018, the key to the city for a valued member of our community. At this time, if I can have everyone stand and recognize Commissioner Lister for her service.
All right, you guys have been listening to me for 10 years, so I'm going to make this really short. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the city of Madeira Beach. And Steve Kochek's right. The reason I'm here is to make the city a better place. I think that's the reason Debbie's going to be up here, is to make the city a better place. We're all going to work for the same thing. We're all working towards a better place to live because we love it here. But that being said, I could never do this by myself. I could never do this by myself. I had so many people. Mr. Lewis over here always kept me in line. He says, Terry, that's not exactly the way I want it. You know, it should be this way. And I said, absolutely. I agree with Dick most of the time. So just thank you for the people that stood out on the corner and waved the signs. Thank you for the people that donated money to my campaigns. And just thank you for being my friends and my city family. My hugest congratulations, and thank you go out to my wife, Kathy. She was just my rock for 10 years. So that is a fantastic thing. Thank you, Kat. And I just thank God for the opportunity to do this. So again, I just want to say a big thank you for letting me be up here, and God bless Madeira Beach.
And we're going to give Commissioner Lister probably about 2 weeks off before we ask him to serve on an advisory board.
All right, and now we will have the installation of the elected officials. City Clerk?
Yes.
I, Debbie Weinstein,
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
do solemnly swear or affirm. Oh, I'm loud.
Raise your right hand. I, Debbie Weinstein.
I, Debbie Weinstein,
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
do solemnly swear or affirm
That I will support, protect, and defend.
that I will support, protect, and defend
The Constitution and government.
the Constitution and government
Of the United States.
of the United States
And of the state of Florida.
and of the state of Florida,
The city charter.
the city charter,
City codes.
city codes,
Policies and procedures.
policies and
Of the
procedures
city of Madeira Beach.
of the city of Madeira Beach,
That I am duly qualified.
that I am duly qualified
To hold office.
to hold office
Under the Constitution of the state.
under the Constitution of the state,
And that I will well and faithfully perform.
and that I will well and faithfully perform
The duties of Commissioner District 1.
the duties of Commissioner District 1,
In which I am about to enter.
in which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
I'll ask Commissioner Nancy Hodges to come forth. Come over here where everybody will see you.
Okay.
right hand
Yes,
and
sir.
repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Nancy Hodges,
I, Nancy Hodges,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
the city charter,
the city charter,
city code,
city code,
policies and procedures of the city
policies and procedures of the city
of Madeira Beach,
of the city of Madeira Beach,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
the duties of Commissioner
the duties of Commissioner District 2,
2, in which I am about to enter.
which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to the two new commissioners. And will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Oakley,
Here.
Commissioner Weinstein. Here. Vice Mayor Douther,
Present.
Mayor Black. Thank you.
Here. Next, we have the appointment of the vice mayor. And I recommend that since Commissioner Douthert was the previous vice mayor in District 4, that we start the rotation with District 1 as we've done in the past.
I agree.
I'll second.
Well, first we have
I make a motion that we go to District 1 for vice mayor
And I'll second.
for the next year.
any discussion?
You should clarify for the record who District 1 Commissioner is.
Debbie Weinstein, District 1.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Oakley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Douther, Commissioner Douther,
There you go.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein,
Okay, yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. Next on the agenda, it says mayor, and I have no idea what that is there for, so we're going to just cross that off.
That was a mistake.
Okay. And now we have the approval of the agenda. This time I'll entertain a motion for the approval.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Any comments from the commission? City clerk, will you please call the roll?
Write this down. Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein,
Yes.
Mayor Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Douther.
Yes.
All right, and now we have the exciting part of our meeting today, and, well, not quite yet, sorry, there's one more thing. Proclamation for Donate Life Month, City Clerk.
Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life. And whereas a new patient is added to the national patient waiting list for an organ transplant every 10 minutes. And whereas over 114,000 men, women, and children are currently on the national waiting list for organ. Whereas transplantation, of which nearly 5,800 are in the West and Southwest Florida area, and whereas an average of 20 people dies every day awaiting an organ transplant that does not come in time, and whereas one organ, tissue, and eye donor can save or enhance the lives of as many as 75 people, and whereas everyone is a potential organ, eye, and tissue donor and can register their wish to save lives through organ and tissue donation at www.donatelifeflorida.org or on their driver's license. Now therefore, I, Maggie Black, Mayor of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2018 as Donate Life Month in the City of Madeira Beach, and encourage all residents to consider giving life through organ donation and to sign up on Florida's Organ and Tissue Donor Registry by visiting www.donatelifeflorida.org, or when renewing their driver's license or state identification card. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, to be fixed this day of April 10th, 2018.
Thank you. Now we have the fun part. And we're going to start with the swearing in of our new employees. Chief O'Neill.
Here, commissioners? Yes, no, is it working? It's always an honor and privilege to be up here in front of you tonight, and tonight's a very special occasion for us. We get the honor and privilege of swearing in a couple of new firefighters. So without further ado, I'll ask Mr. Jared Shanofsky to come forward. Mr. Shanofsky comes to us with 3 years of firefighter paramedic experience. He's previously worked for the city of Pinellas Park, and he's also worked for Sunstar Ambulance Service. Mr. Shanofsky has also served in the Israeli Defense Forces for 3 years as a sergeant, paratrooper, airborne infantry, and a machine gunner. So don't give him any problems. He also speaks fluent Hebrew. So it's a pleasure to have him with us tonight. Also with us tonight is firefighter Tom McClave. Tom comes to us. Tom, where are you? Here he comes. Tom comes to us with 25 years of service with the City of Seminole Fire Department. And I'd like to say a special thank you for Chief Burford for being here with us tonight and for all the training that she imparted to firefighter McClave. He comes to us, like I said, with 25 years of service. He's served as a hazmat technician, marine operations operator, and an acting district chief. He also works as an instructor for the St. Pete Fire College and many other accolades to his credit. So it's a pleasure to have him with us here tonight. And now we'll do the pinning. If you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do, most solemnly and sincerely, promise and swear.
I do most solemnly and sincerely promise and swear
that I will obey the Constitution of the United States of America.
that I will obey the Constitution of the United States of America
And the Constitution of the State of Florida.
and the Constitution of the State of Florida.
I shall serve to protect the public with courtesy and respect,
I shall serve to protect the public with courtesy and respect,
holding dedication to duty
holding dedication to duty
above personal comfort and convenience,
above personal comfort and convenience,
wherever my skills and talents will be needed.
wherever my skills and talents will be needed.
I will strive unceasingly
I will strive unceasingly
to find better ways to protect the lives,
to find better ways to protect the lives,
homes,
homes,
and properties
and properties
of my fellow citizens
of my fellow citizens
and the visitors to the city of Madeira Beach.
and the visitors to the city of Madeira Beach.
So help me God.
So help me God.
the latest members of the Madeira Beach Fire Department family. It's also my privilege tonight to reintroduce Mr. George Hill, who is actually receiving his 5-year service award pin tonight. And the latest member of our fire department family that's with us here tonight, to start with, I would like to introduce some of their foster parents. If they would please come up. Carrie, just you, or are you going to bring the rest of your team up? Perfect.
This is Rick Shabady, Executive Director of Suncoast Animal League.
And I'd like to thank you very much for being here tonight. Tonight's a very special occasion for us. This is the first time that we've ever had a fire department mascot. And when we started looking for a pet to bring into the fire service, we were pleasantly surprised when we made contact with Florida, or the Suncoast Animal League. Suncoast Animal League is a nonprofit, no-kill, no-time limit pet welfare service. So when we started looking for this, and I'm going to get off track here a little bit, but I'd just like to give you a little background information on Clover. Clover comes to us, and she was actually involved in a structure fire herself. And when she gets wandered out here, you'll be able to see she's had some burns on her ears, on the back of her head. And I thought, what better fit could that be than to have Clover as our fire department mascot? When we interviewed several different pets before we settled on Clover, and once we noticed the wonderful personality that she has, she was the pet for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure where Clover went to. Here she comes. Here she comes. Ladies and gentlemen, Clover. Everybody knows that any good fire department always has a badge for their service members. So we have a Clover's badge for her tonight. So. Would you like to say?
I would just like to say that Suncoast Animal League is so proud and honored to be a part of the Madeira Beach Fire Department family. We couldn't have asked for a better home for Clover. To see all the love that all of you show her and the fun, and just she's going to have an absolutely amazing life with your station. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. We love having Clover as part of our department. So, okay, Clover, back to the station.
Back to work.
Thank you all so very much.
Chief, if I may, before we go ahead, if we can have our new firefighters and Clover and the board get together for a photo, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Perfect, absolutely. rest of the family now.
We've already communicated to the fire personnel that they cannot use Clover as a part of the union negotiations. So she can't come into the collective bargaining sessions. Chief, I appreciate it. Great job. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to start off.
Okay.
All right, I think there are some pictures that people want to take, so we're going to recess for 10 minutes.
Okay. We'll do that.
We have one last item under presentations and proclamations, and that's an update on the penny for Pinellas from Director Marsicano. Somewhere?
Madam Mayor, members of the board, the item before you this evening that our Public Works Director is going to be presenting on stems out of a conversation that occurred at the Big C meeting with respect to what other government agencies are doing with their penny for Pinellas beautifications monies. And it was communicated that there's approximately $1.3 million that the city of Madeira Beach has that has not been, in essence, appropriated to their knowledge. Contrary to that remark, staff did some research, and our Public Works Director, along with our consultant, are going to communicate to you the monies, or where the monies are slated to be spent, and what the restrictions are as it relates to the money. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works Director. It's a conglomerate of all the coastal communities. That's all right. Barrier Islands, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here before you today with Steve Tart from CPWG Engineering to go over the penny for Pinellas and what we have done so far. The City of Madeira Beach contracted with CPWG to design, permit, and construct the undergrounding of overhead utilities along the Gulf Boulevard corridor. The penny money that we are speaking of can only be spent for infrastructure projects and beautification projects along Gulf Boulevard. We started at 155th Avenue and proceeded south. This detailed coordination with 3 utility service providers, Duke Energy, Frontier, and Spectrum, to replace old and exposed services to underground locations and new conduit systems in order to facilitate the undergrounding. The project was broken down into multiple phases to better ensure completion of scope and to maximize work completed, as the project was funded by the Pinellas Beautification Tax. The construction aspects of the work primarily consist of directional drilling and conduits to minimize disruptions and restorations, as well as some open cutting and infrastructure conduits to accommodate the project demands. CPWG also facilitated coordination with the 3 utility providers to install their infrastructure wiring, switchgear, and services to the residents. When we do this, obviously they have to have new services put in. We're no longer coming in from overhead. We're now coming in from underground. They also assisted us with the installation of new street lighting, and we're in the process of removing all of the old overhead utility wires. And the wires are removed, but there's still some poles that need to be removed from 155th to 150th. But basically, this project is nearing completion. I won't go through the detail, but there is a list there for everybody. We will be continuing with the rest of the project from 150th to 144th with the rest of the monies allocated from the penny, and that will be running through 2019, I believe.
That's correct.
And with this, we will go to 144th Avenue, and we are now working with Steve's firm to try to get even further than that. There is a possibility that we may even be able to get down towards 141st, possibly 140th. So we're aggressively working to achieve that. Is there any questions for Steve or I?
This item was merely for informational purposes and for us to communicate back to our partner agencies, our other peers, to let them know that as much as we would like to assist them in their endeavors, our money has been earmarked for the undergrounding of the utilities, and we're going to continue through that process until, in essence, the money is spent. Also, it is very explicit with the use of that money and what it's supposed to be expended for, and the nature of the construction market, as you gentlemen know, can fluctuate day to day, week to week. So the monies that we have allocated, it would be too premature for us as an agency to say that we could potentially have $200,000 left over. The reality is, until we start moving forward with some of the construction associated with the project, we won't know exactly some of the hard costs. So we are going to communicate back to the other agencies that the monies that we have are intended to be spent within the time frame as communicated by the Penny for Pinellas and the requirements, and then also inform the county as well.
I might add on to that. At the Big C, what we were asked was, are we going to have any money left over? And if we did, could we give it to a city who needed money? Because there's some language where if you give your extra money to another city, you will get it back, but it's just, I guess, I don't know how it all works out. But so what we're getting at is we don't have any extra money to give to anybody.
You will not.
I thought it was interesting too, Mayor, that at that same Big C meeting, some of the people that were sitting at the table where you were, because I was just sitting in the back, did comment that they are trying to elaborate. They're trying to be more expansive in their definitions of, instead of just Gulf Boulevard, you know, that they are trying to incorporate, I guess, a larger scope into the things that the Big C will be able to evaluate and spend more money on other areas of just the Gulf Boulevard.
Yeah, and I think that'll
in the future.
I think that'll be associated with the next round, because my understanding is we're going to do another 5-year round of the $35 million allocation. So, and I've heard the same thing. There may be some expansion.
Thank you.
And also the comments with respect to if there is any money that's remaining from the appropriation that the city of Madeira Beach received, I think based on the nature of the presentation today, we would be one of those agencies that we would ask other government entities, if you are not planning to expend your money, we would certainly assist you in taking that money off your hands, because we obviously have some projects that we would like to move forward with, because if we can continue with the mobilization of the construction resources that are deployed, it will make it a lot more cheaper. So that's one of the things that we wanted to see if the board was interested in staff advocating for some potential additional monies that may be left over by other agencies to continue the project, because we're good to go on our side.
How does that money get back to the appropriating city?
So what would happen is the allocation, they would inform the county and say, we're not going to expend $300,000, and then the county would remit payment to Madeira Beach. And then that would, in essence, come off the top of our next allocation, and then that other entity would get that money back in the next allocation to do whatever projects that they have. But obviously, undergrounding the utilities in our community is a major project and an initiative. So if we can get some additional funding from other municipalities to continue that, we certainly should advocate for that.
It won't be any of your immediate neighbors.
Yeah, yeah. So
we're doing their undergrounding also, so they're all the same situation.
So if you have any friends in some other communities,
right. Maybe Clearwater up there.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Next, we have unfinished business, and the first item there is ordinance 2018-02. Fence ordinance modification for a second reading and a public hearing. Director Portal.
Just saw her a second ago.
Okay.
Have the clerk read the header of the ordinance by title.
Oh, here she comes. You want to go ahead and read it?
Ordinance 2018-02. An ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 3, walls, fences, hedges, and sand fences, Section 110-447A and B, and Section 110-453B of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Madeira Beach, providing for the height of fencing in rear yards, defining fence types, finding the amendments consistent with the City Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability, providing for the recognition of state preemption, and providing for an effective date.
Madam Mayor, is it appropriate, or before we go into Linda's presentation, is it appropriate if I make a comment because I'm just so brand new on this board?
I would say that would be appropriate.
Is that okay with you, Linda, please, Planning Director? Well, as a brand-new member of the board, I've looked at this thing about 7 or 8 times, and I understand parts of it. I know it's a deep presentation, and I know that it's very important for our community and everything, but I would just like to ask if there's I am okay with some of the things that have to do with the carving out of the commercial items, okay? But the residential, I just don't understand it all yet. And I would like to ask if, instead of going for the second reading tonight, if it's appropriate to actually put it back to workshop at least one more time so that I can understand the full implications of it to all of our city.
Mr. City Attorney, can you advise on that?
Or you could do there could be a motion if you want to make such a motion. If you get a second, and then they'll take a vote on that.
Okay, well, I would like to make a motion then that the ordinance 2018-02 fence ordinance modification, which is coming to us tonight for the second reading and public hearing, be not postponed, but be tabled until we put it on a workshop, an upcoming workshop soon.
A second.
Okay, open.
Any discussion? All right, will the city clerk please call the roll?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, could I ask one thing?
Yes.
There are people who are in need of fences in the commercial. I know that Commissioner Weinstein said that she's comfortable with that. Is there a way for us to get a kind of a notice of intent regarding the commercial changes from the board to allow us to begin working on some site plans for places that have security and safety issues?
To the department director's point, if there is a specific section of the ordinance that the board does feel comfortable with, one of the things that we would like to ask the attorney is it applicable for us to have, in essence, legislative intent from the board to be able to move forward with the section that the board has comfort with until we bring back the residential component, which seems to be, in essence, the sticking point, because we have some concerns to the security of property and life safety concerns as far as accessibility to people's businesses, etc. And it's been something that has been an ongoing issue for the agency. So, Mr. Attorney, I guess my question to you is, if the board feels comfortable with certain provisions in the ordinance, can staff proceed forward with legislative intent, assuming the board verbalizes that they have no issues with that section, and then bring back the item in which, or the section in which they have the concerns, and then officially adopt it all at once?
Yep, so no permits can be issued unless they're in compliance with the code. So unless the ordinance is adopted and changes the code, the staff cannot issue permits until it's changed. If you want to go forward with the commercial, you could adopt the commercial part of this ordinance tonight and not adopt the residential, workshop the residential and come back again. That would have to come back as a new ordinance. Ordinances have to go through 2 public readings. They have to be advertised. This has already been advertised for first and second public reading. And if you want to ensure that we don't have to spend money to re-advertise, if you could pick a date certain as to when the ordinance would be heard, that might be helpful. If the clerk could instruct what date it would be heard at workshop and what date it would be heard on a city commission, a regular meeting agenda. Or today you could go ahead and adopt the commercial aspects and not adopt the sentences that have anything to do with residential, if that's your pleasure. I'm trying to parse out the commercial and the residential sentences. And I think
yes, there are 2 sections that are a little more pressing, and that would be dealing with the commercial. Our fence code only talks about lots on water, and it doesn't distinguish between residential and commercial, and a lot of our marina businesses are not allowed to put up a security fence, so we've proposed they be allowed a 6-foot open fence that would be placed in their site plan, and then we would work with them to decide what the best placement was on a case-by-case basis. And then there is also the section dealing with lots that are edge lots that are at the very edge of a residential area and right next to a commercial or a public use areas such as the beaches, that they be allowed to have the 6-foot fence for security and also to keep the lights out of their house, because the headlights coming from parking lots are driving right through their homes. And then also where the lot is close to the park, the people are coming right over their fence and around their fence into their yards and trampling down the sea oats and things of that nature as well. Those are the two sections that are kind of security issues we'd like to definitely proceed with.
Commercial, section 110.447A and B, where the changes are being made, if you said in commercial rear yards, you added the word commercial, that would make the ordinance effective in commercial, but also still have along property lines adjacent to parking areas associated with non-residential. Would also be covered, and then you could come back later and do residential if you wanted.
Okay, that was my intent, because I know it's all important. I understand that, but I know the safety issues with regards to the commercial residential edge and the commercial fences. So I'm comfortable with certainly allowing that and then pursuing the other. So does that require an amendment to the
You would make a motion, you would withdraw your motion and then make a motion to amend the proposed ordinance to add the words, or add the word commercial. In the first sentence of A, where it says in rear yards, to say in commercial rear yards.
Oh, wait a minute.
And then B, to say in commercial rear yards.
Yeah, that I've just lost. I've just lost it. I had my hand on it. Okay, so I retract or rescind my original motion and request that a motion be made to accept the 110.447A and B in commercial rear yards, accepting the commercial and the commercial residential edge, and then the...
Yeah, we wouldn't use the word accept because it sounds too much like accept or accept. I would say I make a motion to amend to add the word commercial in between in and rear yards.
Got that, Clara?
You could say
that's okay, that's within the header, and you're only adopting the ordinance with regard to some, it's less than what's been added.
That's correct. It is less than what has been requested.
So you can say as so stated by the attorney.
As so stated by the attorney. Do you understand okay, that yes, we're accepting 110.447 in A and B in commercial purposes, okay, and commercial residential edge, but holding off the rest of the ordinance.
The residential.
Pending, yeah, the residential, yeah, pending. Thank you very much for all your help.
The rest of the ordinance you would be adopting, you're just making that one change to the ordinance to add two words, commercial and then commercial. Okay. And you'd adopt the rest of the ordinance.
I know what I want. I just didn't exactly get it out right, did I? But I'll work harder.
And that is on second reading, correct?
That's correct.
Second and final reading, yeah.
So that would go into effect if you adopt that tonight, and then you'd have to come back and do another ordinance for the residential yards.
So would you have to do two readings on the residential when they come back?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Even though we've already done one reading on?
Right, because it's
another
changes.
It's another ordinance, yep.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
You should ask for a second to the motion.
Yes.
If there's no second.
I seconded.
Okay. Okay.
Any? Well,
Take public comment.
Yeah, right, I was going to say that. Do you have any more that you wanted to tell us?
Oh, no, that will be fine. I just want to, procedurally, I believe that you need to accept the amendment since you seconded.
Vote.
You have to state that you accept the amendment.
Accept the amendment to the motion. Second the amendment to the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. The floor is now open for public comment. Yes, sir.
Dick Lewis, 561 Crystal Drive. As you know, I've submitted extensive comments on this subject via email, so I'd just like to note that the solution tonight seems to be a very good one. I've certainly had no objections to the commercial aspects associated with this, but that as pertains to 6-foot fences in rear yards of residential property on waterfront is not a good idea, and of course that deserves to be rejected. So I think this is an excellent move. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Jason Delacruz, Don's Dock, 215 Boardwalk Place. I want to thank you guys for making this adjustment so that we can continue to move forward and everybody being thoughtful about this. This is very helpful for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Floor is now closed for public comment. Any more discussion on the board? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Weinstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Doubter,
Yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. All right, our next item on the agenda is reimbursement fees and costs for the recall. Mr. City Attorney.
Good evening. I'm actually appearing before you tonight as the attorney, first for Commissioner Duthert. He prevailed in his challenge to the recall special election. The special election has been enjoined and will not occur. No appeal has been filed. Commissioner Duthert incurred expenses, 1/2 of $13,094.39, which is a total of $6,547.20. And he would ask to be reimbursed for those legal costs and fees. There is a case directly on point, Ferrara versus Caves, 475 Southern 2nd, 1295, which states when a city commissioner defeats a special election, they are entitled to recovery of their costs and fees, and they're entitled to a legal defense to bring that case, where they are acting in their official duties as part of their public position. In this case, Commissioner Duthert was sitting at the very dais you are sitting, took advice from the city attorney to hire a budget director. They hired a budget director. The judge in Circuit Court in Pinellas held that it was your duty under Florida statutes to adopt a budget, and that you had the home rule power to hire a budget director to assist you with preparation of a budget. And that was not a violation of the charter, and it was not malfeasance, which is required under the Florida statute regarding recalls. The judge enjoined the election, and that has not been appealed. If there is an appeal, we will defend again and submit to you the fees and costs for appeals. But at this point, there has been no appeal, and the election has been defeated. So we would ask for a motion and a second to pay the legal costs and fees in the amount of $6,547.20 for Commissioner Duthert. Commissioner Duthert has filed the Form 1 conflict of interest. We'll be filing that and will not vote on this particular motion. We'll do these recalls one at a time. They were separate recall petitions. So we'd ask for that first motion.
I'll make a motion that we pay the $6547.2 in legal fees for Commissioner Douthat, Vice Mayor Douthat at the time.
I second the motion.
And take public comment?
Absolutely. Any public comment? Yes, sir.
Steve Miller, 15329 Harbor Drive. I don't know if this is appropriate. If not, has the issue actually been resolved, or is the only thing that was really decided was the temporary injunction? There were other motions as part of this whole trial to actually find that the petition was insufficient, and as part of that, there was a section that requested some damages, if there were any that were appropriate, that the judge felt was appropriate. Is there any pursuance of that? In other words, if that motion was ever adjudicated and found to be, and the plaintiffs found to be correct, there was a request there that there were whatever other damages, whatever other adjustments would be made by the judge appropriate. There was some concept of that. Are we just going to let that all slide, or is that going to go forward? I mean, he hasn't really ruled that the thing was insufficient. He says he thinks it looks like it was insufficient. It went to trial. It would be found insufficient, but it hasn't gone to trial. That's just a question I have, probably appropriate for the attorney. Thank you.
At this point, the judge has found and enjoined the special recall election, finding that the grounds alleged in the petition were legally insufficient and do not constitute malfeasance. The ball, if you will, is in the other court now for the recall committees to do something. They have not filed an appeal. If they file an appeal, we'll defend and we'll submit additional invoices to you. We don't want to pursue additional work that's not necessary. Once the judge has ruled in this case, most of the time the parties will simply stop and the case will end and may not necessitate any further legal action. If there is an appeal or further trial work, then we'll have to come back to you. But it looks like this is over, at least for now.
Any more public comment? Public comment is now closed. Any more discussion from the board?
I still don't quite understand, since it is a temporary injunction. I mean, like Mr. Miller had stated, that it's not really over, and that's what I don't understand.
I can also address that. You are allowed under the law to give temporary payments to pay these costs as they come up. The case does not have to be completely finished. By way of example, the city of Sarasota, one of the commissioners there faced a sunshine law claim that she had violated the sunshine law. The city paid her legal fees as they went along. They amounted to over $200,000 that the city expended to defend this one commissioner on a sunshine law violation. They were allowed to pay as they went along. In this case, this commissioner has defeated the special election. The special election has been enjoined. It will not be held on the 17th. But for some future legal actions that are filed by the other side, this case is over. If I was advising the other side after you lose a temporary injunction and the judge makes a substantial likelihood of success and explains why it's not malfeasance, it really would be most likely fruitless to go forward with the case. So I believe that they probably will not keep pursuing it. If they do pursue it, then we can come back to you and get additional legal fees and legal costs covered. Right now, this commissioner has put up $65,4720 in personal funds and campaign funds, and it's simply unfair to have a commissioner like the one in Sarasota with the sunshine law shoulder legal fees in excess of $100,000 or $200,000 in these cases. The rationale is explained in that Ferrara case.
This one? Yep.
The case is explained and attached to your handout that was provided. In Ferrara, versus Caves. The town was required to pay a reasonable attorney's fees for suit by the town's mayor and 2 of the town's commissioners seeking declaratory and injunctive relief against recall petitions, which were precipitated by their votes on a proposed ordinance. Very similar, almost exact same facts here. We had 2 town commissioners, not the mayor. There were declaratory and injunctive relief. Both the declaration and the injunction or enjoining of the election have occurred in this order from the court. And the Attorney General has opined in AGO 9158. Florida courts have recognized the common law right of public officials to legal representation at public expense and defend themselves against litigation arising from the performance of their official duties while serving a public purpose. The purpose of this rule is to avoid a chilling effect that a denial of representation might have on a public official in performing his duties properly and diligently. As the 4th District Court of Appeals in Lomello versus City of Sunrise stated, such an obligation arises independent of statute, ordinance, or charter, and is not subject to the discretion of the keepers of the city coffers, and that would be the city commission. It's not subject to your discretion. You have to approve these. $6,000 is a lot to a lot of people. Many people wouldn't run for office if they knew they'd have to spend $6,500 defending themselves. Many people would not run for office if they thought they might have to spend $100,000 or $200,000 defending themselves against a claim, like has happened in the city of Sarasota. That's the public purpose for why the cities defend. Prior city commission in Madeira Beach, I am told, I was not here at that time, but I was told that a prior city commission agreed to defense for city commissioners regardless of whether they win or lose. Certainly you're allowed to reimburse in more than this basic situation, but in this basic situation where it's been addressed by Ferrara versus Caves and Lomello, that it's not subject to your discretion, that you have to pay these fees and costs.
Any more discussion from the board?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we ever get anything that says this is a closed file now?
You may or you may not. The other side may walk away. They may continue to put money and legal expenses and costs into this case. They're paying for their own lawyer too. They may not wish to pursue it anymore. So we'll see if there's an appeal filed. Appeal filing fee is expensive. It does cost attorney time and money and expense to keep pursuing a case. Usually if you get a ruling like this out of the judge, you either appeal or you don't appeal, and usually you wouldn't appeal, continue to actually work the case. I think it would cost double this just to keep going forward until the point where we were to get a final decision, final order. So typically if you win at this time and there's no appeal filed, the case is over. And for all effective purposes. And there will be no election. The election was defeated.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Will the city clerk please call the roll? I believe we did.
Okay.
Nancy. I did.
Yeah, I seconded.
You first. We have a first and a
Debbie
second.
seconded it.
I seconded it.
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
What was that?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. All right, I think we have to go through the same scenario with Commissioner Oakley.
Yes. We'll give Commissioner Oakley a chance to leave the dais and Commissioner Duth a chance to come back. Commissioner Oakley makes a request for the reimbursement of legal fees and costs incurred in defending against the recall petitions and recall special election in the amount of $6,547.20. The same reasons.
All right, the floor is now open for public comment on this.
Can I make a motion first?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Any public comment? Floor is now closed for public comment, and now we can entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we reimburse Ms. Oakley for the amount of $65,4720.
I second the motion.
Any more discussion from the board? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Douthat,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. Next on the agenda, we have the Jim Black Volunteer of the Year. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, the item before you this evening is to get direction from the board as to how you would like to proceed with the Volunteer of the Year award and submission. Staff has put together what we believe to be an appropriate timeline and a sequence of events that would occur as it relates to this particular award and the award submission. We would look to have a time frame when applications or submissions would be available from March 1st to April 1st. Then when the submissions are received, the city clerk and the volunteer coordinator will go through those submissions. We are asking for folks to be able to communicate in less than 350 words why said individual is suitable for such an honor. Once the 5 submissions are determined by the volunteer coordinator and the city clerk, that will come to the board at the first meeting in May, and then ultimately the top 5, the board will select who in essence is the Volunteer of the Year. We are recommending that there will be a public recognition at the City Advisory Board and Committee Awards Appreciation Dinner. This is something that we believe as staff and having conversations with board members that there is a desire to recognize those that serve our community in various capacities with a dinner and an event annually to commemorate their service to the city and then recognize the Volunteer of the Year. We have put together an email that they would in essence send the submissions to. We're also probably looking at some type of form response or form document where we can put on our website where people can download it and bring it into City Hall or email it. In the event that the board feels comfortable with the recommendation as provided by staff, this is something that would need to be incorporated in your policy manual that you will be discussing directly after this particular item, because it specifies a process that you are to follow in your policy manual. But we had this conversation with the board and you asked for staff to draft a sequence of events, and so we worked on this, and at this time staff is recommending consideration and direction from the board as to how you would like to proceed.
Any discussion?
How many volunteers do we have? What is considered a volunteer? I guess that's my first question. Is the people on the different committees, like the budget committee, are they considered volunteers also?
They are considered volunteers also, and the way we want to look at it is that if somebody volunteers for the city and does an exceptional job, you know, we are going to make sure that we also document those things that they do, as well as the hours that they donate to the city. So the application you will see will have Joe Q. Citizen. This is the person that's submitting for Joe Q. Citizen, who's a volunteer with the city of Madeira Beach. And then this person has put in 1,000 hours over the year. Also, if there is somebody that is outside of the agency that volunteers with the, Boys and Girls Club or another agency or another organization or our Little League, and there is documentation that we can effectively see that this person has volunteered, that probably would be submitted as well. Now, I think there's an opportunity for you to have Volunteer of the Year, and then if you wanted to spin off, have Citizen of the Year, to where you can recognize someone that's doing great things in the community or contributing to other aspects that are in essence outside of City Hall, but if there's somebody out there every weekend cleaning up the beach and they're doing it and somebody notices it, there should be some opportunity to publicly recognize them as well. So it really depends on how the board would like for staff to look at it. We look specifically at the Volunteer of the Year award, and we said, well, if we just speak specifically to those folks that are signed up to be volunteers, then that's easy for us to track it. But there's still folks that are doing great things in our community, and we wanted to try to find a way that allows for them to be recognized. So you can have City Volunteer of the Year, and then you can have Community Volunteer of the Year. You can really spin it off either way, and it would just be us creating the mechanism for people to submit submissions for consideration.
So anyone out there can submit someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mayor, we did have for many years the Citizen of the Year and also the Employee of the Year. We always had that for 20, 25 years, I remember. And I think the Volunteer of the Year is really good. I do like the idea also of the recipient and the board members from the various boards being recognized at a committee awards appreciation dinner. We also had that every year at a local Madeira Beach restaurant. And it was very good because it just made everybody feel like they were appreciated. But I really think, I don't know that we've had an Employee of the Year, and I think that should also be one of these categories. Is that possible? Or
Whatever the board's desires are, it's possible. But with Clover in the organization, it's kind of an unfair competition.
Another box of dog biscuits. She gets dog biscuits. But I think maybe it's something that we should consider because we do have some outstanding employees, and it's good to recognize them. Everybody likes to,
So we would have the same thing, but have different categories, you're saying?
Yeah, we can easily craft situations where you have Employee of the Year or Citizen of the Year, those types of things. And then at your awards presentation dinner, it's community awards. You're recognizing your advisory board, you're recognizing your Volunteer of the Year. And anything that we can do to bring the community together to celebrate some of the great things that are happening, it's a win-win for everyone involved. And I can tell you just from the responses that we've gotten from our survey, I have about a list of about 85 names or email address for people that are interested in volunteering for events and all that. So I'll be working with giving that list to Jim as it continues to come in. But people in our community are engaged and want to participate, so we certainly want to allow for that to occur.
We should just go ahead and expand it as much as we can then.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's a lot of good people out there
Yep.
that need to be recognized.
Okay. If it's the pleasure of the board, what we can do is staff can come back with drafting a recognition program, and it'll be very simplistic for us. Employee of the Year and Citizen of the Year, and then of course our Volunteer of the Year. And your Citizen of the Year can encapsulate someone that's doing things on the beach or doing something with the Boys and Girls Club or the Rotary, and we will just have a submission process that you as the board will take a look at that and then make the decision as to who fits in those categories, and we'd recognize them at the appreciation dinner. So we can incorporate that in the policy manual for the board if that's something that you want us to proceed forward with.
Is this something that we'll do by consensus, or do we take a vote?
This is something that you can just provide direction, if there's consensus for the board, provide direction to the manager to go ahead and draft, those two other
I would recommend that.
I would say yes.
I would too.
Yes.
Why don't we ask the public if they want to make any?
I would like to add, though, Mayor, that in the city manager's memo, and then the next subject that we're going on to, which is the policy handbook, okay, there was a little bit of conflict in just wording, okay, on Article 2 in that policy handbook. When we get to it, we can, that needs to be consistent, okay? We either just use Jonathan's city manager's verbiage for it, or go back to the policy handbook. So we can do that next. That's good.
Is there any public comment on this item? All right, public comment is now closed. Any more discussion before we go forward?
Nope, I just think we need to do all those, yes.
Okay.
Categories.
Good.
Okay. Next, we have Resolution 2018-02, the Board of Commissioners Policy Handbook. I've got 5 items that I think we need to update the handbook, or should include these items when we do vote to adapt it.
Mayor, I need to read the resolution
I'm
first.
sorry, go ahead.
Resolution 2018-02, a resolution of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending the City of Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners Policy Handbook and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. So aside from changing the verbiage for the Jim Black Volunteer of the Year Award, I would suggest that we also change or add to the order of business the confirmation of direction on page 12. And also on page 12, besides the regular order of business that we have in there, we should also have a second order of business for meetings following the election, because that's not clear how that is supposed to go when they're sworn in. Also, there's been some direction lately about how the BOC mail is to be handled. I think that needs to be in the book, in the handbook, and I believe we should have a discussion about whether or not we want to include the invocation in the order of business. Well, I'm going to open the floor for public comment on this item. Floor is now closed.
The invocation is going to be if somebody wants to take it over and do it.
Right.
So that's up to
Well, it's on the order of business right now.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I may recommend what I've seen other agencies do concerning that is reach out to your local pastoral community and have your local pastors schedule them out, months in advance, and they are the ones that deliver the invocation, and you just continue to allow for it to rotate in your community. If that's something that the board is interested in, we can certainly reach out to our local ministers, and I'm sure they would be willing to do so. And with regards to the Pledge of Allegiance, obviously any of the board members can lead that. But one thing that I've seen a lot of other communities do, which I think is a nice little twist to it, is reach out to your Boys and Girls Club, your local area schools, and have young people come in to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And when they lead the Pledge of Allegiance, they get a shirt that says, "I led the Pledge of Allegiance at Madeira City Beach, or Madeira City Hall." So it's an opportunity to get kids involved in government and let them know that they're welcome. So that can be a nice little thing that we can do as well. So just some thoughts.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Mayor, I would like to suggest that maybe we can give some thought to it with regards to the invocation. I've said this before, but I've always felt like a moment of silence might be considered, because we do have so many different cultures and so many different people who feel different spiritually about a lot of things, and that a moment of silence gives everyone the opportunity to, I guess, pray in their own certain way. So maybe we can think about that as well.
I like that idea.
I like the invocation in it. I think it's important that we do say something before a meeting, because we all need God in our life, So,
but we all have different beliefs too.
And I think on that, if we bring in different denominations, we could bring in the Catholic, the Protestant, the Jewish, and have each of them lead an invocation. It doesn't just have to be non-denominational. We could do it various ways,
But I still think it's
We-
important to have it, you know, like you said, to bring someone in if none of us want to take over that situation, to have someone come in. That'd be great. You know, I just feel like it is important. It is important to have it.
It would also give us more involvement.
Yes, it would. Yes, it
We,
would.
we had done that many years ago. I remember back in the 80s, we did ask different churches to provide, you know, a little bit of spiritual service before we started. And perhaps it was just the times or whatever, but there weren't that many that came forward. And I remember we had Reverend Pickens for the longest time. He always came. He was always good. But then there seemed to be a lack of commitment on the other ones, and that's why we went to one of our own board, you know, providing the invocation.
Well, perhaps we should ask the question, does anyone on this board want to do the invocation?
I wouldn't mind doing it.
Good.
Well, should we do that then, rather than rotate in?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
You know, we could do
From
that.
just a First Amendment and interference with church and state issues, if you do it, it's good to change it up a little bit each time. The good thing about putting it to an interfaith religious alliance of ministers, priests, rabbis is they usually cooperate together as one human family, and they come forward and change it all the time. If we're going to do one person all the time, then that person should make an effort not to promote one particular religion, you know, Judaism or Buddhism or Hindu or Christianity, but to keep it either non-denominational or vary them, including atheism or a moment of silence. Or then there's maybe sometimes if there's a school shooting or something like that, a moment of silence may be very appropriate. So just keep that in mind, that we don't get into a rut where we're just doing one particular denomination of a particular faith each time, as long as we keep it more general.
And Mr. Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, the Supreme Court has ruled on this, and it says you can offend, you just can't force. So you cannot force someone to participate in the invocation, but if they take offense to the invocation itself, it's not something that is going to get the city in any precarious situation legally.
Well, I don't know that it's ever been tested that you do an invocation, say a Catholic invocation every time you meet.
Yeah.
That may not be, that would probably be a bad case to have to bring. So that's the only thing I'm saying. You're allowed to do invocations. They are allowed to be religious. If they are religious, you have to open it up to other alternative religions, alternative prayers or non-prayers.
All right, are we all okay with Commissioner Hodges doing the invocation?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
good.
Okay. Are we still looking for corrections in the handbook now?
Yes.
Are we still working on some?
No, I think, you know,
Okay. On page 5, under the government access channel, do you think it'd be important for us to put down the channel 640? A lot of people don't know what station it's on to watch the meetings. It's number 3, government access. It's on page 5.
oh, there it is, okay.
So channel 640 is the government access channel for Madeira Beach. And they can actually turn that on the TV and watch the meetings right off of that.
All right, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. And then also, we talked earlier at the very beginning about the meetings as far as, do you think it's possible to have maybe 2 meetings, regular Board of Commission meetings a month instead of 1, which would probably cut down on the time. So instead of having a 3-hour meeting once a month, we might have an hour meeting once a month. And plus we'd have our workshops too. But we had this request from several residents. They made a remark that, you know, either they're not home from work at the time, or for whatever reason they can't make it at 6. So if we could change it to 7 and make it more convenient for the residents to come in for the meetings, and maybe expand it to 2 meetings a month instead of just 1.
I think that's something we need to talk about at a workshop.
Okay, we can do that. All right.
Any other comments from the commission?
Yep. On page 4, where it talks about the newsletter, it says the newsletter will go out 4 times per year, and we're not doing that at the present time.
The only comment I have on that, and perhaps Mr. John, I lost my train of thought. Oh, Jonathan, you said you were going to do a newsletter 4 times a year? Is that the same thing?
We're going to actually, this week is going to be a publication that we're going to be putting out every month, which is going to be the city manager's report, which is an update on things that are going on in the city. But also we're going to look to utilize constant contact and putting out things on a consistent basis. Now, that's electronic. With respect to a printed newsletter, that's something that I know the board had talked about engaging the company that used to provide the communicator, and I just want us to look at marketing and communications from a holistic approach to make sure that we're hitting all types of medians to make sure that people are getting information in every possible way. So I think print media, I think digital media, and so when you look at something like this that says that the city will do a newsletter X amount of times a month, I think more flexibility allows for us to be creative, because technology and the way in which people get information changes, instantaneously. And believe it or not, some of the responses we've gotten from the survey, a lot of people get their information on social media now. So making sure that we have a robust social media presence or a presence on Nextdoor and those types of things. So things are constantly shifting. So I think leaving it open-ended to where, the city will have a communication plan, and in the communications plan it will divulge exactly the strategies and the things that we do, as opposed to nailing us down to 4 newsletters, because we're going to be putting out things a lot more frequent than that. But we do want the flexibility to do other things, because there is some cost associated with it. So we have to be wise in how we do spend our money.
So you're going to rework that then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Next thing I have is on in Article 2, page 9, under the Jim Black Award, where it says nominations are made at large by the commissioners. We're not the one making nominations.
Right.
We might be selecting from the nominations given, so that needs to be changed.
And that's why we want to, if it was the board's pleasure to incorporate the language that we discussed in the previous agenda item, we would make that change to say the board will select from a group of finalists for the Volunteer of the Year, Citizen of the Year, and Employee of the Year, and get it to where we'll do the initial screening, and then we'll give you 5 names on each side, and then you'll look through the application, and then one of you can ultimately put a motion on the table for who do you think should receive those awards, and then it's voted on by the board.
Okay, and then on page 11, under types of meeting, on the first one on the very last line, it says, at 6 o'clock, or amended from time to time, or set on the second Tuesday of each month, or as otherwise determined by the city manager. Are you determining what time our meetings are, or are we determining what time our meetings are? That very last line under number 1.
I think the or otherwise determined, it gives me the flexibility to set the meetings, but it does show that. So the way I would interpret it is that in the event that I wanted to schedule a meeting earlier than that 6 or after that 6, that would be something that I certainly should consult with the board and say, our meetings are going to happen at 7 p.m. versus 6 p.m. But that's something that I really do believe the board should establish by resolution. I don't think, in this document, that you say, hey, we establish it by resolution, and if you decide to say, for the summer months or for your peak season, you're going to have 2 meetings a month and it's going to start at 7 o'clock, you can do that by virtue of a resolution, as opposed to kind of leaving it open-ended, to having a manager be able to say, you know what, instead of 6, we're going to do 4, or we're going to do 7. I think you should keep it consistent, because the public depends on, if we're going to be here at a certain time, we're going to be here at a certain time.
And then, Madam Mayor, this kind of goes more to you. Number 3 on page 13, it says when people come up to do public comment, it says they're supposed to give their name, address, and the organization or group they represent. And we have not been doing that. Do we want to keep that in there, or do we, you know, how do we want to handle that, I guess is my question. It's 3A.
I think that might have been used. I think that might have been used at one time when a group of citizens might have come in on one subject. There might have been 20 people to come in on one subject. And so the person who was asked to maybe make the responses for, instead of 20 people getting up, okay, they would say, my name is Debbie Weinstein and I'm representing the neighborhood crime watch or something like that. And maybe, perhaps that was in the, that's why that was used, to the organization or group they represent, kind of indicating that there's a lot of people here from that same group. That might have been what it was used for, but I don't really see the need for it.
That, you know, or that could be, or like when Old Salt came in and they were talking, they could say, hey, I'm representing Old Salt. You know, just so we, the board,
oh,
you know,
right,
who they're representing, or what they're representing. You know, just if Jim Smith comes up here and says, I'm Jim Smith and I live at such and such a place,
yeah,
and starts talking or something, but we might not understand why he's talking about something if he's trying to represent a group of people or an organization or something like that. That's why, you know, if they're not representing something, you know, if they're just speaking their piece, then that's fine too.
Well, isn't he really, or she, just still representing his own opinion, even though they're part of a group? I mean, because they're not there saying, I am the spokesperson for this group, and here's what I'm going to say. This is my opinion. I may belong to this or that group, but this is my personal opinion.
Okay. I mean, I'm just asking. You know?
I know.
yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I may, one of the things that I've seen very successful in other agencies is, of course, having comment cards where people fill out comment cards, and on that comment card, it really outlines the sequence of events, how the meeting is, how an item is introduced when staff speaks, and then also on the back of the comment card is perforated, and it basically has no personal attacks, basically your rules of engagement. But what we've seen to be a success, and it helps structure public comments a little bit better, is that if Jonathan comes in to communicate on an issue, but Jonathan also has a group of residents that share Jonathan's perspective and want Jonathan to be the spokesperson, what we would do is you fill out the comment card, and then on the back of the comment card there is a list of about seven or eight lines. If they get folks that are in the audience to, in essence, give up their time to speak on that issue, Jonathan now gets 10 minutes to talk, and then you don't have a situation whereby you have 10 people talking for 30 minutes as opposed to Jonathan talking for 10 minutes. So by them giving up, they give up their 3 minutes, and that person gets 10 minutes to address the board, and then the people have to be in the audience. So the clerk would call their name and say, Joe Smith. Joe Smith would have to raise his hand, and then Joe Smith cannot speak again on that issue. That issue is done, and Jonathan is the spokesperson for that group. And so when you have situations whereby, similar to the Old Salts, you would get 1 or 2 people that would be the primary spokespeople, and the folks would sign the back of the card, but they have to be present to be able to give their time. And we've seen that has allowed for the flow of the meetings, and it gets folks that, you know, and you can do it to where you say, only if you have 7 people can you speak for 10 minutes. It's not, if I get 5 people, can I get 5 minutes? You can say 10 minutes if you get 7 people to sign it. So you're not hearing the same repetitive things over and over, and it speeds up your meeting. So just food for thought.
We have tried that before, and it just, for some reason, I can't recall, but it didn't seem to be working.
I know what we did before is people came into the meetings in the evening, and on the back table there would be cards, and they would just fill it out saying that they want to speak during public comment, and then they would turn the card into Amy when she was here, and then she would actually call them to come up when it was their time to speak, and they would come up and then speak. That way she still had their name, their address, everything was there for the record.
I'm talking about the sharing of time. That's the part
The
that
sharing of
didn't
time,
work.
I don't remember.
Do you remember why
any
that didn't
sharing.
work?
Not this time. Last time we did it.
Yeah.
And they would let them pool their 3 minutes, however many people got up. They did that a lot.
And the comment card is very valuable because it's a tool for us to be able to contact that individual, because we'll have name, address, phone number if they provided email address or what have you. So that's a very valuable tool.
I think that's a good idea.
And we can easily design that. That doesn't take much time at all. But I did want to, communicate to the board, because in some decisions and discussions you're going to have are going to be controversial in nature, and somebody may want to be able to talk to you for 10 minutes versus having 10 people talk for 30 minutes. Just a thought. One of the things that, as part of your policies and procedures, that I would like for the board to consider, and I believe the city clerk has some recommendations, is to allow for the manager with the appropriate notice to request the special meeting. Those types of situations sometimes arise from time to time, and I think it's easier for me to be able to say, okay, can we go ahead and look to call a special meeting versus me having to call one of the elected officials, the mayor or a group of the elected officials, to talk about scheduling a special meeting so we can talk about a business item. Obviously, that's going to be few and far between if we go to 2 business meetings a month, but there's a couple of items that I think would be important over the next couple of months to have maybe those 2 meetings, because they're very complicated, and if we don't have a special meeting dedicated for some of those issues or separate some of the things, you're going to look at having multiple-hour meetings. So just some things that, if it's the pleasure of the board, I would like to see an opportunity whereby, the city manager can request a special meeting or call a special meeting for, operational purposes, et cetera.
Any other comment?
Yes, I have some. I'd like to refer to, I think that's a great suggestion for the city manager to be able to call a special meeting, because I'm sure we will have lots of different issues probably in the next 6 months perhaps. But I'd like to refer to, I guess, page 6. No, I'm sorry, page 4. Official forms of media. I think that I guess I'd like to suggest that the city manager be our official representative to respond to all different kinds of projects that are going on in the city, because I think that sometimes in the past sometimes the information is not being delivered to the newspaper people accurately. So it's just my personal opinion that the city manager might be the one who's on the hook for answering questions with regards to city projects. Well, it's a more accurate way, really, of doing it, because we all have our own opinions. And even though we might say to somebody, people have said, I've said something and I've never even talked to them. So I think that it's, I think that it's important, because the city manager does have the knowledge and the accuracy of all those things that are going on. So I'd like to consider that under that official forms of media, that the city manager be the go-to person. And under the newsletter on that same page, John, you were saying that, and you too, Jonathan Dollar and John, we're saying a newsletter is in order, and there's so many different ways of media. And I was kind of thinking that maybe we could have a newsletter like we used to have that was produced by, I think it was Bob Griffin's company, maybe twice a year, that would incorporate a lot of very interesting things about Madeira Beach's history, where we're going, and I think we're doing some really exciting things in the next couple of years, and maybe some that would just be of interest to all citizens. And a lot of people still, believe it or not, are not on the internet, okay? So I think it's very good to publish that twice a year, and then on the city website maybe have an abbreviated newsletter that brings all the highlights of what we have published, okay, and sent out to the public. So that's it for page 4. And then on page, on page 6, for us just all to remember that we're all part of the Board of Commissioners, and we do have a responsibility, and all about that. I highlighted that to read that 3 or 4 times. On page, that's right, that's where on page 7, under legal issues, number 2, use a designated spokesperson for the city's position on controversial issues. And I guess I was trying to expand that, so that you could be our go-to person. I think that also on page 7, under 3, 4, 5, it's kind of with regards to 3, 4, and 5. And when I was reading it, I'm sure that we all just kind of remember in past times during campaigns to be elected, it was very distasteful sometimes when we saw our city logo actually being used on individual campaigns. I'm sure that we won't have that in the future, but I thought it was very distasteful, and it looked as if the city was trying to endorse a candidate, so I'm sure that will not happen.
There actually is, and the attorney can correct me, there actually is statute that prohibits the use of the logo unless it is expressed by the government entity. And I think it may even be a misdemeanor, but we can definitely put some language concerning our logo. And then also, ultimately, I've seen situations where we've provided some logos, because a lot of consultants, when they come in to do presentations, they want to grab your logo to be able to utilize in their presentation. But you have to put that disclaimer there that, give us a call if in fact you're going to utilize the city's likeness and brand and all that, because you have an opportunity to mislead the public, and that's something that we don't want to do.
Right. Thank you, because I appreciate that too. I think it was in just very poor taste. Okay, so let's go on to page 11, under regular meetings. I was reading that too, because I must have had a different experience from some of y'all, that when you were talking to different people about the times of regular meetings. And I specifically, I don't know why, either I brought it to people's attention or maybe some people brought it to my attention, that they like it at 6 o'clock. I never liked it at 6 o'clock, but most people that I talk to like it at 6 o'clock, so I just wanted to add that. And under that, also under regular meetings, where it says an agenda setting meeting is to begin at 5:45 for the purpose of setting the workshop agenda, to be held the 4th Tuesday. Well, I was just wondering if we would have ever considered, or would we want to consider, having the agenda setting meeting after the regular meeting has ended. And in that way, if we had something that appeared on our agenda that night and we wanted to take it back to the workshop on our, from our regular commission meeting, then at the end of the meeting we could say, oh, we talked about this tonight. Now we can't put it on the next workshop, but what about the next one after that? So that's just something to consider if we'd like to do that. Then there's only one other thing, and that's on page 12. And under order of business, down under K, where it says reports and correspondence from the city commission, city attorney, city manager, and city clerk. I remember a long time ago in our commission meetings, and I thought it was always very helpful to the board members as well as to the citizens, if we would consider having a 5-minute presentation along, by the, or at the same time, the city attorney does his little 5-minute spiel or 3 minutes on what's going on in the city, and the city manager as well. I think it would really be good to consider having the Public Works Director, definitely the Sheriff's Department, and I think Commissioner Oakley mentioned that a couple of meetings ago when I was sitting in the audience, that the Sheriff's Department is definitely should come before us at least once a month, because that helps the citizens know sometimes where there's problems in their neighborhoods. We used to have the Sheriff's Department that reported that, and so people would be especially careful. At Crime Watch, I think that's really important. I also think it's important for the Planning Commission, the representative, the chairperson of the Civil Service Commission, Planning Commission, Library Trustee, and also our newly formed ad hoc committees to at least make some type of a presentation on a quarterly basis maybe, so that the citizens of the city and that the board, us, know what's going on, instead of having to do it individually, and ask each chairperson of that committee. So I'd like to think about that.
Madam Mayor, if I may, one of the things that we'd like to add to the agenda, similar to the comments that we've heard from the board and was mentioned earlier, is the section for staff reports. That section for staff reports allows for me to bring in situations that are current events and relative to the discussions that you're having with your peers in other cities, as well as what you're hearing from your constituents. Similar to that of the Penny for Pinellas discussion. That was something that we heard. We wanted to get in front of the board, so we said, okay, let's put it on just for informational purposes only. So that staff report section will allow for us to say, okay, we want a briefing from law enforcement, we want public works, and we can, put in whatever department it is based on what that section is. So I think we need to have a section on the agenda that's a standing section that we can put staff reports in there, and you can just FYI, this is what's happening. If Walt gets information, preliminary tax numbers from the property appraisers, we can update you on that, what's going on, legislative updates, all that. So we can encapsulate that under the title of staff reports, and that's what we wanted to be able to do. And those are traditionally just for informational purposes.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's it.
Any more discussion? Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, and I have to ask the city clerk, Claire, is it your intention to get the board to ratify this evening, or would you like to come back with some of the changes and the discussion items at the next regular meeting of the board?
I'd like to get it ratified tonight and add I'd like them to consider my recommendation on the mail.
Okay. How are we going to, because there was a lot of discussion that occurred, how are we going to make sure we incorporate what the desires of the board are? That's my only concern, is because the nature of the conversation was so many intricate and moving parts that I don't want to miss something if we ratify it tonight. I think it may be pertinent for us to take this item back, to look at all the items that you have brought forward as the board, and maybe even at our workshop on the 24th, we just hit the highlights real quick as far as the additions. The board says, okay, this looks good, and then we can bring it forward at the first meeting in May. I just don't want to miss something that you had discussed as part of your policy manual, because you've got to live with it for the next year.
Right.
I think that's a good idea, because we
I
did discuss a lot
misunderstood
of different things.
I was thinking about my item, to be, to talk about it, incorporate it, or ratify it, but I believe it should come back and actually adopt the resolution with all the cleanup and last minute comment and changes and tweaks at that first Tuesday in May.
Okay, so
So you'll have it ready for the workshop then, for us to go over?
Yeah, we can do that at the workshop and then adopt it at the first Tuesday in May.
So we need to table it today and for the workshop.
Exactly. Okay. All right, we will table that till the workshop, and now we will go on to contracts and agreements. We have the 4th of July fireworks show at Chief O'Neill.
I think you forgot to make a motion to table and then second and then vote
Allow for
on it.
public comments as well.
And public comment.
Oh, you mean on the resolution?
Yes, because you're taking official action to table it, and so if you're taking action, you need to allow for public comment.
I see, okay. All right, any public comment on previous discussion? All right, we're closing public comment. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we table it until to be updated and look at it again at our next workshop.
Okay.
Second.
Any more discussion? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Doubter,
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein. Here. Yes. Commissioner Hodges.
Yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. All right, back to the 4th of July fireworks show. Chief O'Neill. Great fireworks.
Absolutely great fireworks, and that's what we're planning again this year. This is a joint venture between myself and Mr. Marsicano. We always put this thing together, and this is a renewal of a 5-year contract we have. I think we're in the 4th year of that contract now, and we're just seeking approval for that.
Okay. Any comments from the staff or the board?
The only comment I have is I think we should pay in full and get the extra 3% product at no additional cost. I mean, free is good.
Free is good.
You know, I talked to Mr. Evans about this the other day. Two different points on this. Number one, I think we need to be approaching the main businesses that are affected by this. American Legion, the Marriott, the Slice Pizza, and McDonald's, because we're, you know, their business is going crazy during that time, and ask them for donations towards this, even to increase the amount of time, because it's like 18 minutes it says in here, or, you know, or decrease our costs or whatever. And Mr. Evans kind of brought to me, he goes, when he was in Largo, the city never paid for fireworks. It was the businesses who always picked up the bill. You know, and I talked to him about it a little bit, and he said for the next year that the city would go out and start talking to or recruiting the businesses to see what we can do to lower this cost or increase the fireworks or whatever way we want to go after it. But, you know, for this year I'm happy with it, but I'm just saying for the future, I think we really need to look at that. And, you know, and like I said, the business is right across the water. They've got a slam dunk right now. I mean, they're sitting in the prime seats. And I think, you know, they should be willing to help us out on this, you know, just my thought.
I agree.
You know, but like I said, it's good for right now, but I think for the future, we need to kind of start looking at that. And like I said, I talked to Mr. Evans and he agreed.
Madam Mayor, that is one thing that during my tenure with the City of Largo, I was responsible for going out and soliciting contributors for the fireworks show, and we did not budget for it the entire time I was there. And we were able to raise, in some cases, over $50,000 from private sector companies. And the companies we would go after is your automotive dealers, your hotels that would benefit from that. So I think it's a win-win for us as an agency. And the worst case we can do, you know, is ask the question, because it literally is about $1,000 a minute for a fireworks show. So if we're able to raise $5,000 or $10,000, we can expand on what we have, and you know, hopefully we get to a point where, you know, you have the biggest fireworks show in Pinellas County because of contributions from your business community. So we're definitely gonna try to see what we can get accomplished with that.
All right, we're putting you in charge.
I think that's a great idea. And with all of the influences and all the people that y'all know, you know, and that staff knows and everything, I'll bet you that we could do it. I've never heard of that before, or never, known it was done. I think it's great. Go for it. On page 30 of that, page 30 of the contract, the previous mayor's name was on there, so that needs to be changed.
Yes.
That was something else.
Any more comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Floor is now open for public comment on this item. Floor is now closed. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to enter into an agreement with Fireworks Display Unlimited, LLC, for the 2018 4th of July fireworks show.
I'll second.
Will City Clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Oakland?
Yes.
Commissioner Doubter? Commissioner Doubter?
I know it.
Oh, okay.
I thought this was a 5-year agreement, not a 1 year, because that's what the chief just said. He said
No,
enter
I
into
didn't say, did I say
He
1
said
year?
it's the fourth.
I think it's a 5
year
year.
of a
I think
5-year
this is the fourth
contract.
year of the 5, but we
I
do
didn't
this
say
every
one
year.
year.
So we're, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hadn't questioned
Vice
myself.
Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. And next we have the temporary parking variance to allow for Madeira Beach LLC/Sam Lewis to lease the 134th Avenue East parking lot. Mr. City Manager?
Madam Mayor, members of the board, this item came before you at the March 16, 2018 meeting of the Board of City Commissioners, and in the conversation it was communicated that the parking lot on 133rd Avenue was not available for the use because of the impact it would have to an existing adjacent business. Staff and I had the opportunity to walk the site and speak with the property owner, and they communicated that there was an arrangement in place that allowed for the use of that particular site. Planning and zoning is doing some cursory reviews to see if there in fact is any documentation that does memorialize that type of an arrangement, but it is staff's opinion that there was some type of discussion as it relates to that particular parking lot being utilized for supplemental parking for the restaurant that's adjacent to that lot. In our conversation, we then went over to the parking lot at 134th Avenue East, which is a shell lot that has approximately 8 spots. Currently, the city leases that lot from a property owner for the cost of about $300 a month. In discussing this particular lot with the operator of the Mad Beach Fizz House, they said that that lot can accommodate what they're looking to accomplish associated with the construction and the demands for their restaurant, as well as the demands that the construction will place on that particular site. In addition to, the operator did want to have the parking lot on the same side of the road that their business is on to mitigate any potential conflicts of crossing Gulf Boulevard. When we looked at other parking lots in the surrounding area that were city lots, those were substantially more expensive because they are on the water side, so those are major profit centers for the agency. What staff is requesting this evening is pursuant to the legislative intent that was communicated at the board meeting at the March 16th meeting. Staff is requesting granting a temporary parking variance to allow for Madeira Beach LLC, Sam Lewis, to lease the 134th Avenue parking lot and authorize the city attorney and city manager to execute a mutual contract for the use of that property. The temporary agreement would be something that would be in place until we brought forward a long-term agreement to accommodate the time in which the construction is going to be occurring on that particular site. So this is going to be, in essence, a stopgap measure to assist the operator of the restaurant to be able to move on this very quickly to utilize that space, because we cannot continue to prolong this, and then staff will bring forward a full contract at the next board meeting for ultimate ratification that will spell out some of the items that the board communicated at the March 16th meeting. The temporary agreement will have some of the same major components. It probably will, in essence, be the same agreement. The things that we will see a change is probably the revenue component to that. That revenue that is collected with that parking lot is about $5,000 a year for those 8 spaces. So we will structure an agreement that at minimum the city recaptures what the impact would be. Also, when we look at parking holistically, we have to be mindful that these types of arrangements are specific and temporary. Our code does not allow for us to get in the business of leasing parking, but when we did permit and allow for the additional expansion of the restaurant and issued the CO and approved the permit, the plans, we have assisted in creating this particular situation. So we thought it was prudent from the staff's point to assist in accommodating the demand and not impacting the restaurant adversely. They're already going to have enough challenges as it relates to having a construction site adjacent to their operation. So at this particular moment, staff recommends approval of the temporary agreement for the parking lot located at 134th Avenue East, and that will allow for a temporary agreement for a period of 45 days, authorizing the manager and the city attorney to execute said agreement, and then bringing back a longer-term agreement at the next regular meeting of the Board of City Commissioners. Staff stands prepared to answer any questions.
Talking about the first parking lot, 133rd, I guess, is the paid parking lot?
Yes, sir.
And there was an agreement. Are they renting that from us? Are they paying? How is that working with them, or they just can use it for free?
They're actually the 133rd. They're feeding the meter, so they're just paying to utilize those spaces. Yeah, but there's no agreement in place on that particular lot.
I just have some questions on the dollars here. You're saying that we are going to rent it to them for $300 a month?
That's what we pay to lease the space for public purposes. So, but we collect approximately close to $5,000 annually with the use of that space. So at minimum, we would want to recoup exactly what we receive in revenue as it relates to that. So that cost is, about $5,000 a year. So you would divide that out. We've got, I think, 10 months of data on that particular parking lot, because if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't operational for an entire year. And we have reached out to the property owners, and they were gracious enough to allow for us to utilize that space. They have no issues with that.
Well, I think we should definitely go ahead with it, because whenever I'm walking by there every single day and there's only one car parked in that gravel lot, and it's got a city permit on it anyway, so nobody's using it. I think it was originally put there for another purpose, to satisfy someone else's needs, but I think that we should go ahead and authorize the city attorney and city manager to execute a contract for use of that parking lot. The temporary agreement's only going to serve 45 days, and then a final agreement you'll bring back to us.
Correct.
$5,000 annually.
That's what we received.
Do I have to make a motion, or did I just make it? I just made it. Is that okay? I make that motion. Does everybody understand it? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any? We're now open for public comment on this item.
You need a second.
Floor is now closed. Any more discussion among the board? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Commissioner Doubtford?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. Next, we have new business, appointment to the budget review committees. City clerk?
Okay, for this item, we had J. Roger Pryor to apply for appointment. There are two regular vacancies on the board. One expires September 30th, 2018. The other one expires September 30th, 2019. The Budget Review Committee had recommended that Doreen Moore, she's currently an alternate, and to being that her term expires September 30, 2019, appoint her to the regular vacancy that expires September 30th, 2019. And then the board can either appoint John Hendricks, who is also an alternate, to move him up to the regular vacancy for a term expiring September 30th, 2018, or appoint J. Roger Pryor to serve as a regular member for the term expiring September 30th, 2018. So it's up to the commission on what they want to do.
I'd like to make a motion that we...
May I ask a question? Oh, do I ask a question?
Yes.
I was just going to say, on the application for Roger Pryor, he put on his application for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So did he change that? Or
yes, he had come in and asked.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
He actually filled out 2 applications.
Oh, okay.
She just put the other one should have been on there.
Okay, I was just confused. Thank you. Sorry, John.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we select Roger Pryor for the Budget Review Committee.
I second.
Floor is now open for public comment on this item. Floor is now closed. Any more discussion? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Before I do that, did you want to move one of the alternates to a regular position? No? Okay.
Doreen was going in. That was the
Right.
recommendation from the last time.
Okay, right.
And
So
then John made a motion to put Roger Pryor in.
Okay, so I didn't hear the second part. I heard the Roger Pryor. Okay. Vice Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Doubtford?
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. Next, we have an appointment to the Charter Review Committee. City Clerk.
Okay, for the Charter Review Committee, we had Grace Critelli that applied for regular membership on the board. We have 1 regular vacancy on that board, and there's not a term limit on it because it's by project each year. The staff recommends that Grace Critelli be appointed to serve as a regular member to that board.
May I back up for just a second? Are either of these candidates here, Roger or Grace? Okay, 'cause I have no idea who. So could you come up and introduce yourself?
I'm Grace Critelli. Do I have this on?
It's working.
Okay. Grace Critelli. I live at 13025 Pelican Lane, and I have placed my application for the Charter Review Committee. Anything else?
I just, on the other committees, people came in and kind of talked, so I was just, excuse me, wanted to put a face with a name.
Grace is also a volunteer.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I also volunteer on
You can't get both awards.
No.
Yes, I think that Grace Critelli would certainly enhance the Charter Review Committee group. I think her background is very conducive to that kind of a volunteerism. And since she's retired from her real job, she can be a volunteer. Thank you, Grace, for offering.
I also like that if we're getting new names and we're not putting 2 and 3 people on committees. I think the more diversity we have, the better off we are, and that's why I kind of like this.
I think it's great.
The floor is now open for public comment. The floor is now closed for public comment.
Need to make a motion.
Yep.
I make a motion that we appoint Grace Critelli to the Charter Review Committee.
I'll second.
Any more comment from the board? City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Commissioner Doubtford?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes. And next we have the appointment to the Civil Service Review Committee. City Clerk?
We have one regular vacancy on the Civil Service Commission, and Grace Critelli also expressed interest in serving on the Civil Service Commission, and that term expires July 15th, 2020. Actually, we have two vacancies. One expires July 15, 2018, and the other one expires July 15, 2020. So you should appoint her and choose one of those terms, either the 2018 or the 2020.
I'll make a motion that we recommend her for the promotion for that term expiring in July 15, 2020.
For Grace Critelli.
Grace Critelli, yes, I'm sorry.
I second the motion.
Floor is now open for public comment. Floor is now closed for public comment. Any more discussion from the board? Will the City Clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Doubtford?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Weinstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Oakley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes.
I would like to take a moment to just thank Grace and Roger for putting their applications in, and we, encourage many more residents to do the same. Get involved in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next is confirmation of direction.
The one was that we will be bringing back the BOC policy and procedure manual at the workshop meeting on April 24th for discussion and touching that up and bringing it back at the second Tuesday in May for adoption.
Okay.
And then also the awards for Employee of the Year, Citizen of the Year, as well as the Volunteer of the Year, and incorporating how those submissions are to be handled and how that process will be outlined, as well as the item associated with the penny for Pinellas and seeing if there's other jurisdictions that would be so kind to allow for us to utilize their allocation to continue with the undergrounding of the utility. And the other item is the fence ordinance, bringing that the residential component back for discussion.
Anybody have anything to add to that? Okay. Next we have reports and correspondence. Anybody on the commission have a report?
Yes, I do. I would like to make my campaign commitment to listen to the entire community views by hosting at the Johns Pass Park, which is also the South Beach, a listening session that I would like to hold monthly. The first one being, like I said, at Johns Pass Park, from 11 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. That's April the 29th. Too bad that the elected officials can't come, because that would be a violation of the Sunshine Law, but it's happened before. But I think that I'd have asked Jonathan, our city manager, if he'll be there with me in case I stumble and err a little bit. But I'd like to hear from people who don't necessarily come to the commission meetings, don't want to come to the commission meetings. We've done it before. Several of our mayors have done it, and city commission. Commissioner Alloway, who's sitting in the very back of the room, he was my inspiration on this about 30 years ago. And I think it's very important to do. Some people just like to talk to one person. So, Jonathan, if you'll help me do that. The first meeting will be on April the 29th from 11 in the morning till 1. If it rains, too bad, but we'll reschedule, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the commission?
I just want to make a remark that last week we had those 2 classes, Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for putting it together. It was very informative. I feel like we kind of came together a little bit here.
We did.
We still have our differences of opinion, but I think we can work things out. And I just wanted to thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing at this time. I did want to ask the city manager, are there other classes coming up, and maybe you should announce them today if you remember?
Yes, actually, if you're done with your time, I certainly will take the rest of your time.
Yeah, cede my time to this.
To the fine gentleman from the, we have a training session that is going to occur on the 16th. I believe that is looking at city charters and then the requirements that the statute provides for ethics and sunshine law and public records training. That's going to occur on the 16th. And we're also working with Marilyn Crotty and Scott Payne and Lynn Tipton on doing some training in May that will do parliamentary procedures. And we're inviting everyone that serves on advisory boards to attend the sessions on April 16th, the all-day session that we have, as well as subsequent training sessions. And that will be available online, and then we will also email all folks that serve on our advisory boards and committees so they're in attendance, because there's some things in there that they need to know as it relates to the public records law and sunshine law and et cetera. So we've got those trainings, and we're going to, as an agency, consistently have trainings and really work with our local government counterparts to bring in some training that we can all benefit from.
Are we inviting like other cities to attend any of this? And the reason I ask that is because I know when Bel Air Beach had like their ethics training, they invited anybody and they had people from all over. Mm-hmm. When Haines City did it last time, a bunch of us went to it, you know. So I'm just trying to be reciprocal to them.
Yeah.
You know.
We are going to open up our training to other government agencies. We're not doing it for the 16th training because it's specific. They're going to dig in specifically to our charter and then talk about sunshine law and all that. But we want to get all our advisory boards kind of up to speed before we opened it up to other government agencies, because we really want to reserve those spots for those that are in our community and those that serve on those boards. Also, I've seen other agencies that have required, before you serve on an advisory board, you go through that sunshine law, ethics training, those types of things, because we're going to do it on an annual basis. We're going to have training on those issues because you are required by statute, as well as myself, to go through 4 hours of ethics training. So we're going to end up bringing the training here. So that's something that you can incorporate in future appointments to say, you know, upon appointment, you have a year to go through this type of training. And it just allows for your boards to understand, you know, government in the sunshine and how the relationship between you and them are supposed to work, et cetera. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to say kudos to Ms. LaFay, my executive assistant. She has been instrumental in orchestrating the training and reaching out to Ms. Crotty to do the training for the agency, as well as the city clerk's office. And the department directors were really eager to have the conversation with the board. And I really think that we're moving in a good direction. We've released our community values survey. Yesterday was the first day that the survey went out. Today is the first entire day that the survey's been out and available to the public, and we've already gotten probably about 320 responses, which is great. And so encourage people to take the community value survey. That's going to be a tool that we're going to share with the community, as well as share with the policymakers, to assist on understanding what the community values. So it's been very interesting because I get to see the surveys in the aggregate form, so all the data put together. And some of the things that I think is very refreshing to see is one of the questions is, do you have pride or do you enjoy living and working and playing in Madeira Beach? And overwhelmingly, you have a very strong sense of pride. So that's something that as we move forward, we need to capitalize on that opportunity to really work together despite what our differences are, because we have a lot more in common than we can even imagine. So there's some really good responses that are coming in from the survey, and as soon as that information is out there for, I think, a period of about 45 days, staff will bring the data back to the board and you'll get to see all the information. And we have that tool that we can survey the community on various topics or anything that the board desires to get community input on. Also, our planning and zoning director is looking to incorporate some technology that if we have community meetings, people from their smartphones or even from a device that we will give them can vote instantaneously on a topic. So you say, do you think Jonathan's the best city manager? You can vote right there on your smartphone or with the device that we give you. That wasn't probably the best question, but I'm just saying that's just a question nonetheless. So we're going to have that technology to be able to utilize for other things. But it is going to be a lot more interactive in how we engage the public. I sent the board an email today speaking specifically on Senate Bill 804, and it was communicated earlier this evening about the beach legislation or the beach access legislation that was executed by the governor and ultimately went through the House and the Senate, and the impact that it will have to our community, and provided some issues that there's some encroachments, there's some concerns that we have that will impact shoreline recreation and beachgoers. And obviously, as tourism is a major economic driver for our community, we need to do anything and everything to protect and preserve the access to our beaches, especially those that have been customary uses. So I would like, if it's the board's pleasure, to work with the city attorney to draft a resolution where we're respectfully requesting the state legislature to consider our home rule authority and understand that this one-size-fits-all public policy is not something that is conducive to our way of life here in Madeira Beach and on the Gulf Coast. Also, once that resolution is drafted and adopted by the board, I would encourage us to share this with our other communities along the coast to see if we can rally some support and really have that frank conversation with our legislative delegation to show them that the law as it stands right now will limit access and can cause for additional burdens on law enforcement, as well as the maintenance of our beach and the access to our beach. So I did send out that memorandum this evening, so you have that. But basically, I'm asking for direction from the board to work with the city attorney to draft a resolution and get it before the board at our next regular meeting, because we don't want too much time to go by before we provide a response to our local legislative delegation as well as the others in Tallahassee.
Are we also asking Pinellas County to get involved in this, as well as the other beach communities?
The city attorney and I talked briefly about providing this resolution to the Board of County Commissioners as well as the other municipalities. And what we would hope is, if we are in fact that first community, coastal community, to pass that resolution, that other communities follow suit and adopt the same resolution, and then hopefully the policymakers decide to come forward and say, you know what, this is something that we are going to take a trip up to Tallahassee and see if we can get them to reconsider the actions next legislative session. This piece of legislation takes effect July 1. So there is some time, but obviously they're out of session at this moment. But there's a lot of concern that we're seeing from residents as well as beachgoers, as well as property owners. And the other side is that you can see yourself in a conflict where you're fighting against a condo development or a hotel development, because the legislation does provide some additional protections from them that they didn't have before. So it's a complicated piece of legislation, and it's something that is going to affect every coastal community here in the state of Florida. So that's what staff wants to be proactive with getting a response to Tallahassee sooner rather than later, and then our local delegation and our sister cities to both sides of us at minimum, and all the way down the Gulf Coast and all the way up the Gulf Coast.
Well, I'm sure the Big C will support us, and if we are the first one to get the resolution out, that'll be great.
Let's move forward.
All right.
That concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you. And lastly, City Clerk, do you have any reports or correspondence to share?
City manager reported on the training. So mine's done.
That's it?
Yes.
All right. It's 8:42 and the meeting is adjourned.